Welcome everyone to the Women's Foundation of Boston webinar information session. Hi, I'm Christina Gordon. I'm the Executive Director. Thank you for taking the time to connect with us to learn more about our mission and vision for economically empowering women and girls in Greater Boston. I am joined by the Women's Foundation of Boston team, Amy Danoff, Treasurer, Talika Hainsworth, and Dinny Starr, our nonprofit managers, Patty Satterthwaite, our COO, and Michelle Samu, our office manager. And our special guest, Linda Driscoll, CEO of Dream Big. The team and I are going to walk you through our presentation for about 15 minutes, which will be followed by Q&A. Obviously, the Women's Foundation of Boston, like all nonprofits, has been dramatically impacted by the COVID-19 crisis and the ensuing economic downturn. We will address this specifically at the latter part of the presentation. Please type any questions or comments and feedback into the chat box, and we will try and answer those at the end. The outline of the presentation begins with how and why we created the Women's Foundation of Boston 4 years ago. The co-founders and I were interested in the economic empowerment of women and girls, and we began researching what was going on in that space nationally and locally, and we found some shocking statistics. From Indiana University Lilly School of Philanthropy's comprehensive research, we learned that only 1.6%, that's right, 1.6% of all charitable giving in our country is directed towards women and girls serving nonprofits. And 40% of that is sent overseas, which is twice the rate of all other giving. So the 1.6% of the time that people feel compelled to write a check to women and girls, they're twice as likely to send it overseas. We wanted to find out more, so we dug deeper. This is a chart of all US giving. As you can see, women and girls serving organizations are getting the least of any group. It's important to note that anything within the two largest groups on the left, religion and education, that is specific to women and girls is actually in the tiny little red box at the end. Women's health is in that small 1.6% box. It's not in the health section. So that small box, minus 40% sent overseas, includes Susan G. Komen, Planned Parenthood, Smith College, Wellesley College, and the YWCA. We couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe these numbers, so we dug deeper. We looked at the top 10 gifts within that tiny red and women and girls box. The number one gift was a health organization in India, and the number 3 gift was actually a co-ed organization in Africa, which was founded by an American woman, so it was mistakenly put in the women and girls group. Clearly, there's a massive underinvestment in women and girls serving nonprofits domestically, and we created the Women's Foundation of Boston to change that. We then looked around locally, and we could not find a large, vibrant women's foundation like there are in 44 other states in America. Essentially, all American cities have a women's foundation advocating and funding for women and girls. Boston did not at the time, so we created the Women's Foundation of Boston in January of 2017, and we have been growing exponentially ever since. Our success and growth highlights the fact that there was a gap that needed to be filled. Our exclusive focus on economic empowerment is very intentional, because we believe by raising a woman's economic status, all of her life variables improve, as well as for her children. Women also reinvest about 90% of their incomes back into their families and communities. And this compares roughly to about 35 to 40% for men. So investing in women is like investing in Boston. I'm now going to touch upon our mission. Our mission is razor focused on economic empowerment, but we also have a secondary mission, which is just to promote philanthropic giving towards women and girls. So we often meet with corporations, foundations, and giving circles and share with them that Indiana University data. I'd like to talk about how we implement our mission. We create and fund high impact projects in 3 areas. First, we focus on career and financial empowerment, which includes job training, financial literacy, salary negotiation workshops. Second, we invest in leadership programs, which includes mentoring networks, very, very important. Third, we fund educational programs with a very kind of high focus on high return fields like STEM and finance. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amy Danoff, and she will talk more about our unique team and our business model. Amy?
Thanks, Christina. The Women's Foundation of Boston team is unique because we're all business women with deep roots in Boston. We bring our expertise in financial analysis, investing, and consulting to our projects and partnerships. Coupled with our extensive experience and relationships in our community, this makes for significant impact in what we do. And finally, we are all volunteers. We have a stellar advisory board, which has guided us wisely through our first 3 years of steep growth. Our board members have expertise in a variety of fields, including healthcare, media, sports, nonprofits, foundations, technology, consulting, finance, and marketing. We're honored and very fortunate to have these powerhouses supporting our organization. We've drawn from our investing careers to build an innovative and effective business model. We research and evaluate nonprofits and their funding requests exhaustively before making grants, and we monitor our grantees' progress attentively. We collaborate closely with our nonprofit partners and grantees to maximize success. Now I'd like to highlight the advantages to our business model. We are tightly focused on the return on our donors' investment in our community. We evaluate impact to constantly improve outcomes and, along with our fabulous board, advise our nonprofit partners, which are typically small and medium in size. We are an important strategic connector for Boston nonprofits and tap into our business, community, and philanthropic networks to build partnerships and create opportunities for our grantees. As you can see, we do much more than just write checks. Because we are all unpaid staff, we have 0 expenses, and every dollar from our donors goes directly to women and girls. Finally, we create important leverage through our collective giving. By combining gifts, we increase the impact and allow the nonprofits to plan better for the future. Our large gifts also often spur foundations and corporations to give more generously. We increase the visibility and credibility of our nonprofit partners with our grants and partnerships. And now Talika Hainsworth will talk about our progress in granting funds.
Thanks, Amy. Hi, I'm Talika, and along with Dinny, I manage the relationship with our nonprofit partners. I would like to share some highlights about them. Since we made our first commitment, which was less than 2 years ago, we have granted over $824,000. This is an impressive number for a startup foundation. Our grants range from economic empowerment programs for single mothers to after-school STEM classes for girls in underserved communities to financial literacy for high school girls. Our typical grants are 3 years, ranging anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 annually. We closely monitor our impact, and we require feedback from our partners twice a year. And outside of that, we are in continuous touch with our partners. We assist them in achieving their goals and work with them closely throughout the time that we have our partnership with them. I will now turn it back to Christina to provide more details about our partners and our own internal initiatives.
Thanks, Talika. Now I would actually like to introduce Linda Driscoll, who's the CEO of Dream Big, and she will share with you how her organization has been positively impacted by the Women's Foundation of Boston. Linda?
Thank you, Christina, and everyone at the Women's Foundation of Boston. The mission of Dream Big is to provide girls and young women from low-income situations with the equipment, athletic footwear, sports attire, college showcase and program fees, and leadership training needed to enable them to participate in sports and physical activities that contribute to their health, education, and overall well-being. 10 years ago, we launched Dream Big after hearing about girls not being able to afford simple things like shin guards or being able to wear uniforms after the boys took them off and played their game. So Dream Big programs, scholarships, and our annual Dream Big leadership conferences for middle and high school female athletes from urban communities have impacted over 45,000 girls and young women in economically disadvantaged communities since we launched in 2010. The generous grant support from our amazing partner, the Women's Foundation of Boston, will assist Dream Big in expanding our college showcase and national championship scholarship program that will create opportunities for high school female student athletes from low-income situations in Massachusetts to have the exposure they need to be seen and hopefully recruited by college coaches. Christina will tell you more about this in a moment. In addition, Dream Big was so grateful during what we know is this extremely difficult economic time to be awarded a COVID-19 emergency response grant from the Women's Foundation of Boston. Right before COVID-19 hit, we had found out that our office building and warehouse was going to be torn down and that we had to move out in August. This grant will allow us to not only not stop the delivery of our much needed programming and sports equipment distribution during a time when the girls we serve need us most. We don't know what we would have done without this recent funding. It has truly helped Dream Big bridge the gap during this very challenging crisis. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as giving a girl a pair of sneakers or cleats so she can play sports that could change her life forever. And we are so grateful for our partnership with the Women's Foundation of Boston. And I'd like to turn it back over to Christina.
Thank you, Linda. At the Women's Foundation of Boston, we are constantly identifying gaps and creating solutions for women and girls' empowerment. The list on this slide gives you an idea of our special projects that we have created, which we will highlight now. Patty Satterthwaite will now share our successful Women in Nonprofit Network.
Thanks, Christina. Hi, I'm Patty, and I'm the manager of the Women's Women in Nonprofit Network, aptly called WIN. About 18 months ago, we identified there were few, if any, opportunities for women CEOs of nonprofits to network, connect, collaborate, and share best practices. And there were almost no professional development opportunities for these women leaders, given their tight nonprofit budgets. We decided to change that. In conjunction with our partner, the Red Sox Foundation, we created WIN, a dynamic and growing network of women nonprofit leaders in the greater Boston area. We don't charge membership fees or initiation fees. There are no lengthy applications, and all of our nonprofit executive directors are welcome to join. We've had 2 amazing events, which were both oversubscribed and got rave reviews from attendees. Our last planned event has been rescheduled for the fall, which will be with Tamara Elliott Rogers, the former VP of Alumni Affairs and Development at Harvard, who will be talking to WIN members about fundraising. We are currently evaluating virtual strategies such as short audio podcasts and webinars to offer members. We are up to 250 members, and this growth continues weekly. We are market-driven and survey often to find out what participants want and need. We are proud of our initial success of this network and have high expectations about its potential to positively impact nonprofits and their leaders going forward. Now I will hand it back to Christina, who will highlight a few of our other projects.
Thank you, Patty. One of our most impactful projects is the Dream Big College Showcase Fund, which Linda referenced earlier. For lack of personal funds, hundreds of elite athletic Greater Boston high school girls from low-income backgrounds miss college recruitment showcases simply because they can't afford the $500 fee and small travel expenses. So many of Boston's best high school athletes are never seen by college coaches, and they lose the chance for scholarships and financial aid. It doesn't have to be this way. We created this fund with Dream Big, which, as you know, is an amazing nonprofit serving girls for over 10 years, for girls who are vetted by requiring a coach referral for up to 50% of the cost of the showcases. So for a small grant from our fund, girls return with a scholarship or financial aid money 75% of the 75 to 100% of the time. This is a fantastic ROI and is exactly the type of work we do well. Lastly, I want to highlight another example of our unique work for which we are very proud. 2 years ago, after 23 years serving Cambridge and Boston girls, the Science Club for Girls had overexpanded, and they were on hiatus and had only one club left, which was kept afloat by the Cambridge school system. We worked long and hard on this project. We did a lot of financial due diligence and eventually created the $50,000 match gift so Science Club for Girls could get back on their feet. They had a wait list of girls that wanted to be in Science Club. They had a long list of women scientists willing and interested in being mentors. We couldn't let Science Club for Girls disappear. Immediately, our gift was matched, and an excellent executive director was hired, and large donors were re-engaged. Science Club for Girls is now celebrating its 25th year, and the Women's Foundation of Boston has been named their honoree of their event. We are very proud of the huge impact we had on Science Club for Girls. Speaking of impact, I'd like to share with you our impact numbers. We have impacted over 2,200 women and girls in Greater Boston in less than 2 years of granting funds. Our impact is broad and diverse, but all empowers women and girls to become financially independent members of their communities. Speaking of economics, I'd now like to turn to the economic downturn due to the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has dramatically impacted women and girls in Boston. This past 6 weeks has been very challenging, to say the least. However, it has highlighted to us how important our work is today more than ever. Boston needs an organization advocating for women and girls, and without us, there would be none. Women have been the hardest hit by the crisis for several reasons. First, job losses are extremely high in female-dominated employment sectors. Second, school closures are forcing working mothers to choose between their families and their jobs. As a result, demand for help from nonprofits serving women and girls is skyrocketing, while fundraising sources have evaporated. So, as you can imagine, we've been inundated with requests for emergency funding. This slide illustrates the vulnerability of women in Boston today. The statistics are quite shocking. Over 70% of poor families are headed by single moms. 65% of people making below minimum wage are women. And sadly, only 0.3%, that's right, 0.3% of Boston charitable giving is directed towards women and girls serving organizations. The Women's Foundation of Boston has addressed this problem head on. We created the first and only response fund specifically for women and girls. We also secured a fantastic match, dollar for dollar, up to $500,000. We are pleased to announce we have raised $400,000 so far for Boston women and girls, and our goal is to reach $1 million by the end of the summer. I'd like to touch base briefly on our fundraising. After raising almost $1.5 million last year, we are poised to reach our goal of $1.5 million again, despite the economic turmoil. Our vision and mission is resonating with many in our community, including men. About 16% of our donors are men, and we're very proud of this. We strongly believe men must be part of the solution. And now, Dinny will talk about how you can get involved and make an impact.
Hi, I'm Dinny Starr, and I'd like to let you know how you can get involved in a variety of different ways to help us drive our mission forward. We always need volunteers, and you would be joining a fantastic group of women. We need grant writers, marketing, development people, as well as event planning, small and large project management, and research. Of course, donating is an easy and great way to help. You can go to our website and donate online, but we also take securities, wire transfers, and checks. Fundraising is an area where we always need growth. We would greatly appreciate you connecting us with potential donors, but you could also host a fundraiser at your home or virtually. One really simple way to help is to follow us on social media and share our posts with friends and colleagues. It's free and it's a great way to increase awareness. Follow us on Instagram at WFBOSTON to see our work and our impact in action. To find us, just search for WFBOSTON. We also post on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So connect with us today. It really makes a difference. Lastly, we would love to connect with your business and friends. We would be happy to set up a webinar for your company employees, which in the past we have done on site. Thank you so much for your support. Now I'll turn it back to Christina for questions.
Thank you, Denny. That concludes our formal presentation, and we'd be happy to answer questions that you've typed into the chat box. We appreciate any feedback on our work as well as even just on our presentation.